good evening and welcome to PM Express with the best political team. Tonight we'll be discussing a cocktail of issues as we've been doing for the past few days now. We're discussing tonight the prediction that President John Mahama will win this year's elections, this Friday's elections, I beg your pardon, by 52%. And then we'll also talk about former President Rawlings's endorsement of the same man, President John Mahama, and then we'll take a look at the trials of the campaign trail for Nana Akufo-Addo, whose podium caved in during a campaign rally when he was addressing a crowd at the Jackson Park in Kumasi. We'll also take a look at the conduct of journalists, quality of reportage in this election, and perhaps look at what we can do better and where we can shape things. You can join us by text 1760 and post your Facebook comments on our wall, facebook.com/multi-TV world. Tonight I have with me in the studio Nana Oye Elitha, who is a human rights advocate. Thanks for coming, madam.
Thank you.
Later on in the show, we'll get onto the phone lines to speak to political scientist Kwesi Amakye, Dr. Bosman Asare, who is also a political analyst. Kofi Adams speaks for the Rawlingses. We'll speak to Neelante van der Poy, who is an aspiring NDC MP, presidential MP, Ododo Diodo for Ododo Diodo. Kwabena Japan is also on the line. And welcome, madam, to PM Express. Let's quickly take a look at this poll predicting 52% win for President John Mahama. I mean, Nana Addo has, there have been other polls where Nana Addo has also been predicted to be the winner. I mean, what do you make of these polls?
What do I make of these polls? I think for me, the critical issue is what is the methodology. And this is coming from the Ben Epson's poll. And I recall the 2008, who was staked to be the winner in terms of majority vote. We've had so many polls for this particular election that it is difficult to ascertain the accuracy, because we've had different. So the issue is how credible and how accurate.
Accurate are these
we've
polls.
had several, and the key thing would be the methodology and how many people were sampled and everything. I suppose it is in the story, but how does this influence the Ghanaian voter? We are yet to get there, but we've seen so many that, it's interesting because there are some who would route for NPP in terms of majority, because even this morning there was also one saying that a US statistician had routed for. So for me, the real poll will be the 7th of December.
Yeah, the
real poll will be the 7th of December. So we'll wait and see. But I'm sure NDC will be very pleased to read that John Mahama has 52 in terms of the majority.
Well, the real polls will be December 7th. Let's get on to the phone line. We're told that Kwabena Japan is on the lines now. Good evening, and thanks for joining us on PM Express.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
This poll, which puts John Mahama 52, Nana Akufo-Addo 46%, and the other presidential candidates getting the remaining points. Does it bother you?
No, not at all. I mean, it's very interesting. You would think that last week there was another poll by Research International that put Nana Addo at 52.2 and John Mahama at 46.7. So you would think that Ben Hepson's poll is a direct opposite of that. But anyway, I mean, as Nana Oye Elitha said, the main poll is the election day. Polling is a new phenomenon in Ghana, and we are not sure of the methodology is being used. But I can say it for a fact that all the different polls, all the parties normally conduct polling. It's an internal mechanism to even see your own strength and see how you want to campaign and what issues you should put on the front burner as your flagship policies. I have seen some NDC polls, internal polls themselves, and if they are being honest to themselves, most of the polls that started as far back as March 2011 to the last one I saw in October 2012 have put MPP ahead of NDC. But anyway, I mean, these are polls. In many cases, there are several times that polls will never be reflected in the actual election. The last real poll we had was the first round elections in 2008. Nanado was on 49%, Professor Mills was on 47%. Nanado was on the popular vote of 103,000 extra. That was the first round. And I always believe that the actual strength of parties are determined in the first round. In the second round, the dynamics change. If you have a majority in parliament and the momentum swings in your favor, others will join the bandwagon. But the actual strength of the parties are determined in the first round. So that is very clear. It means that in that last election, there was 4% who did not vote for either candidate or either party. And in the second round, while the MPP was looking for a swing of 1% to our side, the NDC was looking for a swing of 3% to their side. Research has shown that normally the swing from the undecideds, or what they call the independents, or those who haven't voted for the main parties, normally swing in the direction of the opposition. At that time, the NDC was in the opposition, so they were able to get the 3 to add on to their 47 and just cross 50. We could not,
right.
And now they are in government. Everybody has seen their performance. So if the strengths remain the same, I think the swing is likely to go in favor of Nana Akufo-Addo.
So really, what figures are you working with? I mean, your party might have perhaps commissioned or conducted your own internal polls or research to gauge the popularity or winnability of your candidate. What figures do you have?
I can tell you that all the polls that we've seen, the least that Nanado has had was 51.6, and the highest has been 55.7.
And are you not, for example, looking at your core supporters only? Really? I mean, are you doing a nationwide survey?
Those polls are conducted nationwide, and it's because of Android telephones and all that we can verify as a party.
So what will be your reaction if
global positioning system? So basically, every party conducts these polls, to test their own strength, to advise them in the way they strategize, and we are very confident of a first-round victory.
So what will be your reaction come, say, December 10th, when the results are trickling in and then they've been collated and you do find out, really, that Mahama is getting close to 52%? What will be your reaction?
Well, I thought you would ask the question, what will be my reaction when Nanado is getting 53.8, which is what I have projected? So we are very confident that we are going to win this. I mean, if you look at the last election, the NDC is in power by default. Okay? At the parliamentary election, they were leading us by barely 6 seats. It was a very tight election. We had 4 independent candidates from the MPP. And if you add that to places like Yendi and Salaga, where because of our own internal problems, we lost those seats, which are strong MPP seats. I mean, the seats like Tumu and Golu, which normally goes to the PNC, not to the NDC, they have about 10 seats that they should not have under normal circumstances. We were in office. When you're in office, all sorts of things happen. People get complacent, and those things affected us. This time, if you look at our primaries, 90% went very smoothly. The specter of independent candidates has diminished to the very minimum. You understand? And so we are very confident of having a majority in parliament to start with.
Okay, thank you very much.
I also believe that we'll win.
Thank you very much, Kwabena Agyapong. I also have on the line Nii Lante Vanderpoel, who is the NDC parliamentary candidate for Ododo Diodo. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.
The latest poll is putting, of course, John Mahama ahead, and you coming from the NDC, you must be happy.
Well, thank you very much. But first, let me make a small reaction to the things said by Kwabena Agyapong. One, let me even ask her, who is he really campaigning for? Ronaldo? Was it not the same Kobe Japan who 2007 told the whole world and the MPP delegates that Ronaldo is old, that the world's but the parameters of leadership have changed?
Well, Nilante, let's stick to the poll issue.
No, because I'm making this point because if
I'm listening.
An argument lacks credibility as far as the positions are concerned, it makes it invalid.
Right. So you obviously must be happy because your party's candidate appears to be in the lead.
He also made a point that he is privy to a poll which has been conducted by the National Security Org. It is never true. It is never true. He is not privy to any poll what was conducted by National Security. But obviously, let me say this. I to a large extent, agree with Nana Oyelita when she said that the real poll will be on December 7th. Yes, I agree with that.
So you're not kind of pampering yourself with these new figures and perhaps relaxing.
Let me tell you, no matter the figures, even if the figures are said we were winning by 75%, we'll still continue to work hard.
Right.
Because we'll be more happy to get 99%. We are working so hard, and to us, it's like a football game. Until the referee's whistle is over, the game is not over. We'll continue to work harder and harder. As I'm talking to you now, the president is still on his rounds deep into the night. He's now at Nongwa, coming to Teshin, Lao, Su, and all those places tonight. So we are working harder. We are not saying because a poll has given us the victory, we are going to bath in that glory and relax our efforts. We're going to get our alliance. We're going to work harder than before. But the polls in nature, like Kobe Japan really says, also help us to assess and do our SWOT analysis as far as the campaign is concerned or the candidate is concerned, and be able to preempt into what your opponent may also be doing.
But what the same question I asked Kwabena Japan, what are your internal research or polls telling you that your candidate is winning, right?
Yes, our own polls have always been very favorable to us since June last year. Our polls have been very favorable to us. Before the death of Professor Mills, he was leading marginally, but when John Mahama ascended to the presidency, a poll was conducted which put him far ahead, about 3 percentage points ahead of Nana Akufo-Addo, and he has maintained that stand until quite recently when he surged forward again with almost close to 4.5 percentage points. So we are very positive. We know. NDC, we have not been too favored as far as polls is concerned in this country, but this one coming up is a bit, let me say, flattering to us. But then we are not bathing that flattering. We are working hard.
Right.
So we want to win beyond 53%. 56 or something looks very realistic, but we go beyond 53%, and that's what we're going to achieve at the end of it all.
Thank you very much, Nilante van der Poort. No, Elita, a quick reaction. I saw you wanted to make lots of comments when Kwabena Japan was speaking.
Yeah, very interesting. I think Kwabena Japan has developed some arguments, but it is a fact that NPP was not able to master 50%. So whether during the second round globally, the opposition parties have a favorable position as far as winning is concerned or not. The first round, as an incumbent government or party, they were not able to master 50%. But I'm hoping we go beyond predicting or making projections to looking at different constituents, like we had in the US, women, religion, both for Christians and Muslims, men, and then the younger generation, and then the older generation. It'll be very interesting to segment these different groups and find out how they vote. It'll be very interesting for us. So let's encourage the polling, but at the end of the day, I do not see how it influences the voter because it comes very late. It's Friday. What's the percentage of undecided voters? Because it even seems like people have pretty made up their minds. And as you walk around Accra, there's a calmness. I don't know whether that is the same for other parts of Ghana, but there's just a calmness. It's obvious that people are just waiting to cast their ballot on Friday.
Yeah, well, I'm also waiting to cast my ballot on Friday. Now, there are other issues we're discussing tonight, one of which is Rawlings's endorsement of John Mahama, especially coming at this time. There are many people who would say that it is late in the game and could have very little effect on the chances of John Mahama. Let's take a look at a video at which this endorsement was made. Well, we'll play the video later when we get it. But no, looking at these polls, and then in the context of President Rawlings formally endorsing Mahama. I mean, Rawlings has been a critical, leader of the NDC. He, being a founding member, has never stopped criticizing when he found something going wrong. You think this endorsement coming at this time will have any impact at all?
You know, the Rawlings factor has been a very interesting factor the whole of this year. And I know a lot of people were not happy, especially in the NDC, when he endorsed his wife, Nana Konadu. My thoughts were, what else do we expect him to do if his wife decides to form a party, irrespective of the fact that he's founder. I find it a bit late in the day. I mean, on Friday, I think it happened on Friday. And the fact is that it wasn't news. For me, that is significant that it wasn't carried by many news channels. I do not think it was the subject matter of a lot of discussion, So for me, that is quite revealing. But it still brings a lot in terms of weight to the NDC political campaign because the former President Rawlings is a great, he influences voters. And we've seen that in terms of the extent to which he campaigned for all the elections and the role that he's played in helping the NDC achieve success, especially in 2008. So it carries weight, but a bit late in the day. And the interesting thing is the fact that it didn't make news. It didn't have that impact. And that should raise a lot of questions in terms of our political evolution as a country, and even in terms of the political evolution of the NDC party. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of analysis of the extent to which this endorsement, what sort of impact this endorsement has had on the political campaign of NDC and of the president.
Now, there's a portion of the wording that was used for this endorsement. He said, to be honest with you, if Professor Mills had chosen John Mahama in 2004, history would have been different. What did he mean by this statement, really? I mean, I know that I'm putting you on the spot by asking you this direct question, but if he said that,
I wonder what he means, because then one casts, you cast your mind back to 2004, and was President John Mahama in the works in terms of those contending for the vice presidential slot? To what extent, how high up was John Mahama? So then, what is the import of this statement?
Yeah.
And we also know that it is said that the Rawlingses were gunning for Betty Maud Idrisu. So it raises a lot of questions, and even whether what he means by history would have been different.
Yeah, so we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back to continue the discussion. Stay with us. Welcome back to PM Express with the best political team. Tonight in the studio, I have Nana Oye Elitha joining us to discuss the cocktail of issues we have. I did mention that I was going to show you a video of Rawlings's endorsement of President John Mahama. Take a look.
I know people have been asking and worrying about what is perceived as me not endorsing John Mahama, but that's not the case, okay? I mean, I've said and indicated enough. But what is even more interesting is that I saw John Mahama as a winnable candidate as far back as 2004. And to be quite honest, had the Prof picked him as his running mate then, history wouldn't have been the same.
It's the platform he chose to do this endorsement. It's not really an endorsement, would you say
I think
so?
he was commenting. It was basically, I think he was, because we know that he has endorsed President John Mahama earlier. You know, he was, after the death of Prof, there was a congress of some sorts. Well, I think in Kumasi,
Yeah.
he was there. And listening or, you know, watching the whole, you know, the whole tape, the bit we saw, he was affirming something that he has said. It was like he was not even clarifying, but he was confirming and trying to disabuse the minds of people that people think he has not endorsed him. But yes, and then he says, look, as early as 2000, as you know, way back at 2004, you know, I saw him as a winnable candidate. So I wouldn't even call this an endorsement. And now listening to the whole thing, what I observed is that basically he was saying that I saw him as a winnable candidate, and perhaps if Prof has selected him in 2004, NDC would have won the election. Well, that's what I would interpret, you know, listening to the whole, you know, to all the sentences. That's how I would interpret
that statement, that bit of statement
about
where
history,
is that,
2004 and history. But I wouldn't call this an endorsement. He's just reaffirming something that he has said earlier on.
Good, okay.
For emphasis, I suppose.
Yeah, right. Let's go on to the phone lines now. Dr. Bosman Asare, political analyst, is on the line now. Good evening, sir, and thanks for your time.
Good evening.
You heard if you were listening, you may have heard the former President Rawlings's endorsement of John Mahama. The question is, can we trust this kind of endorsement? Mr. Rawlings himself has changed position frequently this election period. I mean, should we take this serious?
I think certainly Rawlings is an NDC member, so we naturally expect him to endorse the candidature of the president. But the question I guess we need to ask ourselves is, can it make the necessary impact in this election? I personally think that the battle lines are clearly drawn. The two front runners are doing everything possible to be able to amass as many votes as possible. Now we are hearing a lot of changes up there in the north, in upper east, in upper west. And I think that these areas are going to be very important in deciding the election. So we expect that if Rawlings has endorsed, he should make the next step, move to the next level where he will be on the campaign trail doing the job for the president. So I think that if even he has endorsed, I don't think it's going to make any impact in this election.
And especially we have 4 days to the election. Do you think that, I mean, for people who may have been waiting for some express words like these, do you think that it could have any impact in making them decide now to vote or not to vote for Mahama?
No, I don't think so. When you look at it critically, Rawlings normally appeals to the core of the NDC, those who have already made up their mind that they are going to vote for the NDC. These are the people the Rawlings appeal to. I don't think he appeals to floating or independent voters in this country. In that regard, I expect him that his endorsement or his alleged endorsement will inspire NDC faithfuls to go out there to go and vote. But when it comes to those who are not aligned to any of the political parties, I doubt that is going to get the job done for the NDC.
Now, Doc, earlier before we got you on the line, we were discussing the recent poll, which was jointly commissioned by the Republic newspaper and UK Group and Strategy Associates. Now, the polls put Mahama at 52% and Akufo-Addo at 46%. Coming this late, are these polls really something we should rely on and trust?
No, I personally think that we shouldn't rely on the polls. Because some of the polls, when you look at their methodology, they are so suspect. They don't tell us a lot about how they were able to sample. Eventually, most of them did oversampling. But when you are following the campaigns and you are talking to people on the ground in several parts of the country, I think that the polls are not reflective of what is going on the ground. I think that we are going to see some shake-ups in the three northern regions, where even if the NDC is going to win, you realize we are going to see some significant changes in the margins. I expect either the president will go up, will increase the margins of the late president, or the MPP will make some significant gains. So I think based on the polls I've seen, I don't think they are that reliable, and we have to trust them.
But these observations which you've just shared with us, shake up in three northern region and some gains in MPP, what are they based on?
What are they?
I mean, on what basis were you able to say these shake-ups will occur?
No, generally we have been following the campaigns of the various parties. What is becoming clear is that I expect that the people in the north, either they come out in their numbers to acknowledge a citizen of the north, or because of the promises of the NDC in 2008 to be able to address certain problems they believe were created by the NPP, especially the killing of the Yana, to bring the perpetrators for prosecution, and these things were not successful. And you realize that the voters are becoming smart, so you can no longer tell them the things you were not able to do in the past, you are going to do them now. So I expect that either they go for the president in their numbers, or we are going to see some changes. And my sources are even telling me that if we are not very careful, some seats are going to change from the NDC to the MPP.
So what? Are you willing to make a prediction now? You think Nanado is going to make... Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to make any prediction, but based on what I'm hearing, I think NDC will find it difficult winning the northern region by the margin they did in 2008.
And so you expect that the NDC should not be getting 52%?
Based on what the polls are saying.
Yes.
No, I don't think the polls are very accurate. So I doubt if even any candidate can get 52%. The best one of them can get, maybe you are looking at 50.5 to 50.9.
Right. So seriously, tell me, I mean, you a political analyst, if you were to advise the various political parties on how to react to these polls, there are some of the polls which have favored Mahama, some have favored Nanado. What will you tell them? Should they take it serious? Should they work by them?
If the polls are going in your favor, just be happy, but still ignore them and do your work. For now, we are in the final days of the campaign. Your job is to make sure that you get as many of your supporters out there to go and vote in a very civil, in a very peaceful manner. We expect the NDC to be able to tell the people in the voter region that please come out in your numbers and come and vote. And this MPP to tell people in Ashanti that come out in your numbers and come and vote. If you can run some huge margins in your stronghold, if MPP, for example, can run about 90% voter turnout in the Ashanti region, that will be very significant. The same applies to the NDC in the voter region. So I will tell them just ignore the polls and just continue working as if nothing has happened.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bossman Asare, political analyst, for your time. Nanoye, you heard
Yes.
Dr. Asare. Did he make some interesting comments you want to talk about?
Yeah, it's interesting, the comments he made about the northern regions.
And the shake-ups.
And the shake-ups. I find that interesting because the sense I get is that our brothers and sisters from the northern regions are happy that they have a presidential candidate in President John Mahama. And this is even evident in some of the settler communities across the country, because now you have Zongo for Mahama and what have you. So this is what I see. I haven't been up north, so I can't really assess, but this is what you see, you know, that's what you see. And then also the issue about the percentages that he's talking about. I think we all know that it will be close because you can't really tell. And he is disputing the polls. But at the same time, he's giving us figures.
Yeah.
And of course, maybe because of the time, so he's not able to also tell us his methodology. He's saying that he's been following the campaigns. exactly what, how are you following the campaigns?
On TV or on the
ground? Because it's difficult to gauge, unless you speak to the people directly, the taxi drivers, the trotro, and those around, maybe your colleagues and all that. It's quite difficult to gauge. And then, as a voter, I sit and I'm wondering how people gauge. Because none of the parliamentary candidates in my constituency, I haven't seen any. So my decision to cast for A or B will be determined by maybe the posters, or because I haven't heard the agenda for any of them. What do you have for the constituency? For the presidency, you listen to the radio, we've watched the IEA debates, we have seen the adverts on television, and then we have a track record of the MPP for 8 years, we have a track record of NDC for 4 years. So that is what we see. So it's difficult when Dr. Asari says he's observing the campaigns, because if it's radio and TV adverts, then, that could. So for me, that's my difficulty. What I can say is that it seems like it's close,
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back to wrap up. Stay with us. Back to PM Express. Now, over the weekend, Nana Akufo-Addo, the MPP flag bearer, was campaigning in Kumasi when his podium caved in. Let's take a watch and we'll discuss that. Really a very more serious than we take it, Nana.
Yeah, I mean, this is very, very bad. Yeah. And from what I read, 2 persons have been arrested. I don't know, and that some screws were removed. I think that the police ought to investigate this because why would this happen? Lives are even at risk. And then also it speaks to all these negative, happenings, like we have markets burning all over. And then we also have peddling of falsehood and personality attacks, deliberate personality attacks with the connivance of some media persons. Really, this is it the yellow gutter? Yeah, this is happening. And then, and then it's deliberately seeks to discredit candidates. But going to this issue, is there security? Does the state provide security for our presidential candidates? Because I think this is something that ought to happen.
Yeah, because any of them could become the
Yes, any of them could become president. So the state ought to provide some form of security.
But Nana Addo himself has said that he rules out any foul play. So
well, even if he rules out any foul play, we need to investigate.
Yeah.
And then is it that those who set it up didn't do it properly? And how can that happen? But we need to investigate, because all sorts of things happen. And then sometimes too, this happens and then those in the other parties are blamed. So it could be anything. But if some people have been arrested, we need to investigate. And we need to ensure that all these security checks are conducted.
In place.
Because it could be either way. It could be that somebody is doing it just to discredit the other political parties from within, or it could be that somebody from the other political party is doing it, or it could be, you know, a mistake, you know, somebody didn't do it properly. But we need to investigate because lives are at risk. Lives are at risk.
Lives are at risk. I'm told that Dr. Bosman Asare is still on the line. Doctor, thanks for staying with us.
Okay.
A quick one. I mean, if you were watching and you saw Nana Addo's stage cave in, do you share Nana Oyelitha's sentiment that this should be investigated?
No, certainly, you know, this is the flag bearer of the main opposition party. And even when it occurred, we had the former president and some senior people over there. So when such a thing happens, I expect that we should not do the normal thing, investigate and make sure that if some people did not do their work well or somebody planned to do something to the former president and the flag bearer. And so I think it's a step in the right direction. But because the candidate has also said that he does not suspect any foul play, I think this is something we shouldn't place too much premium on it.
You think we shouldn't place too much premium because the presidential candidate has ruled out any foul play, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we live in a country, the time to the elections is some few days away. So usually anything that happens, we want to read several meanings into it. But once the candidate himself has come out openly, publicly, to declare that he thinks there is no foul play, etc., I think we can live it like that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bosman Asare, political analyst. No, Elisa, let's wrap up very quickly on the conduct of journalists. You made mention of yellow journalism, gutter journalism. Have you been impressed with reportage, election reportage this period?
Well, let's say I wouldn't use the word impressed. It's been an improvement. And first looking at the balance, you know, where hitherto we've had complaints about abuse of incumbency and the state media giving a lot of time to the incumbent government. And I think we've seen an improvement in terms of coverage of events for other political parties and then also the NDC. But I believe that the political season affords the media an opportunity to take stock in terms of what the government has done and in terms of what the other parties are offering. And I believe that we haven't had that. Take, for example, the issue of education. Yes, NDC has talked about quality education. MPP is talking about free SHS, free quality, they've added quality, free quality SHS. But have we really interrogated? You know, we're all talking about it, but I don't think the media has assisted in interrogating the two positions and what the math is about these two positions. So we still need to do a lot more. And we know that this seems to be a cocoa season, but I think the media can do a lot more than is doing in terms of interrogating the issues, in terms of questioning the government and the political party in power on what their track record and what they have done. So if, for instance, MPP talks about free SHS, okay, so what did you do in the 8 years to advance this? Why are you saying free SHS? If NDC talks about quality education, what have you done to improve the quality? Are you saying this because you want to rebut what MPP is saying, or you have a plan, you have a blueprint? Even if you don't have a blueprint, what have you done within the 4 years that has created that foundation that you're now talking about quality? So we need, as media, to interrogate so that the people are able to make that informed choice and are able to discern.
Right. I mean, this year, through the election period, the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, GIBA, came out with a code of conduct for the election for responsible reportage for broadcasters. Now, among the things that have been listed, several things included planning, professionalism, monitoring and evaluation, party broadcast, objectionable broadcast, bribery and corruption. They've listed a lot of things about 21 or 28. 17 in all, which are more like guidelines, ensure professionalism, set up an accessible, transparent and comprehensive system for monitoring, declare, publish and commit to a policy of zero tolerance. Beyond these guidelines, you think journalists themselves should aim at doing more in order to give our audience the best in a period like this, election coverage, beyond just guidelines by professional associations of this nature?
This is important. The guideline is important. Where we don't have much in terms of guidelines, I mean, this helps. But moving beyond the guidelines, I see the media as the key tool in terms of providing the electorate information on all the parties and on the political campaign. And we can see how the parties have stepped up their radio, TV, and even the newspaper adverts, because that is the main stream for us in terms of we determining who we should vote for. And so in that regard, the media, we should have a watchdog. We talk about the self-censorship by the media. And we should be able to determine how many of these 17 guidelines the media has adhered to. Because there's one thing putting all these guidelines together and another thing adhering to the guidelines. So for instance, I haven't seen any media house picking up the manifestos and actually doing a checklist. These are the promises you made, and these are the initiatives, or these are the ones.
We have done that on Manifesto Digest.
Well, maybe then it's not been widely disseminated. But these are the, we need to push the frontiers every time. So as a country, we need to assess ourselves after 2012 and say that we're able to push our political campaign frontier. And this would have been so good. And I'm happy that you did it, and of course it may be available on your website. Thank
you very much, Nanoye Letha, and thanks to all of you who joined us. Kwabena Japan was on telephone, Neelanti Vanderpoy and Dr. Bosman Asari, and thanks to you for making time with us. My name is Stephen Anti. Good night.